Have you ever felt like something's off in your relationships, but you can't explain what? Like you're being pulled into roles you didn't choose, rewarded for being someone you're not, and punished the moment you try to be real. If you're a man who's ever felt drained, confused, or quietly manipulated in love, this video will explain why. Carl Jung uncovered a truth about women, a truth most men never hear, and most women would never admit. This isn't about blaming. It's about waking up, about finally understanding the hidden psychology behind attraction, rejection, and the emotional games that shape your identity without you noticing. By the end of this video, you'll see your past relationships in a completely different light. You'll understand why certain patterns keep repeating and how to break free from them. If you're tired of feeling like something's wrong with you, this might be the most important video you'll ever watch. So let me ask you, are you ready to find out what's really been happening all along? The illusion of being seen. Most men think they're being loved for who they are, but what if that's never been true? Jung warned us, many times you're not being seen, you're being imagined. In a woman's mind, you might not be a person at all, but a projection, a fantasy figure playing a role she unconsciously wrote years before you even met. You walk in thinking it's real, but you're already inside a script, one you didn't write, one you don't even know exists. Take the guy who finally lands the woman he's been chasing for years. She laughs at his jokes, hangs on every word, and calls him her rock. He thinks he's found something deep, but a few months in, she starts pulling away. Nothing changed, except that now he's acting like himself. And suddenly that's not what she wanted. That's because she wasn't loving him. She was loving her story of him. And when the fantasy cracked, so did the relationship. This isn't just about heartbreak, it's about identity theft. Psychological identity theft. Jung saw this as one of the most dangerous dynamics in male-female relationships. When a woman projects her inner desires, wounds, and expectations onto a man, she's not interacting with him. She's interacting with her own unconscious. And the man, he thinks he's finally being seen, but he's actually invisible, and it gets worse. Many men like this illusion. They enjoy being idealized. It feels like admiration, like validation, like finally being enough. But they don't realize it's a trap, because the moment they show vulnerability, confusion, or a side that doesn't match the fantasy, she starts to withdraw. That divine spotlight goes out, and the man, left standing in the dark, wonders what he did wrong. The truth? He didn't do anything. He just stepped outside the character, and that broke the illusion. It's like watching a play where the actor suddenly stops and says, "Wait, I'm not this guy." The audience freezes. They didn't pay to see you. They paid to see the role. And when you reject the script, you get rejected too. Think of the man who works a corporate job in New York. He wears the suit, drives the car, plays the confident leader, and she adores it. But when he confesses, he feels lost, burnt out. Suddenly, she's not sure this is working. She never loved his soul. She loved the mask. That confession, it shattered the fantasy, and with it, the illusion of love. This is why so many men feel confused after breakups. It's not just the loss. It's the realization that they were never truly known. The pain isn't just heartbreak. It's erasure, like being fired from a job you didn't apply for and didn't even know you had. No warning, no explanation, just silence. And you're left wondering, was any of it real? So here's the question. If you're being loved for a role, not for your reality, are you even being loved at all? Or are you just performing in someone else's dream? Next, what if that dream wasn't even hers to begin with? What if it was inherited from something ancient, unconscious, and dangerously idealized? The animus and unrealistic ideals. Imagine a man walking into a room, unaware that he's not just meeting a woman, but also an invisible, unconscious force shaping her perception, the animus. This isn't just some fancy psychological jargon. Jung described the animus as the masculine archetype, buried deep inside every woman's unconscious mind. When this animus is immature or out of balance, it crafts a fantasy of what a man should be, rather than who he actually is. Think about that for a second. She's not loving the real man in front of her. She's chasing a ghost, a projection fueled by her internal struggle. Now picture a guy in a stressful corporate job in New York, trying to be the provider, the protector, playing that strong, stoic role because that's the animus ideal. Meanwhile, the woman he's with sees him through this distorted lens, expecting unwavering confidence and control. When he shows vulnerability or confusion, it feels like betrayal to her. She's not rejecting him. She's rejecting the shattering of her ideal. This creates a push-pull that feels exhausting and confusing. No wonder many men feel like they're walking on eggshells, afraid to drop the mask. It's like being cast in a role you never auditioned for. Women, caught in the grip of their animus fantasies, often recycle these impossible ideals across relationships. For example, a man in Mumbai might notice his partner longing for a hero figure, brave, decisive, unshakable, even though she's aware, at some level, that he's just as uncertain and flawed as anyone else. The animus demands perfection, but real men come with cracks and shadows. When the fantasy cracks, frustration and resentment build on both sides. What's even more troubling is that this idealization can be unconscious for both parties. The woman doesn't realize she's projecting, and the man believes he must live up to a myth to be worthy of love. This disconnect fuels a toxic cycle. Ever wonder why so many relationships feel like a battlefield of unmet expectations? It's because love is being fought over a dream rather than reality. And dreams? They don't hold up under pressure. Take a moment to consider the modern dating scene. Apps like Tinder or Bumble reduce complex people into images and curated profiles. This only strengthens animus-driven ideals. Swipe right for the perfect alpha, the successful provider. Rarely do we stop to ask, who is the man behind the profile? How often do we fall for an idealized version rather than the flawed human? The animus, in its distorted form, distorts not just individual relationships, but entire cultural narratives about masculinity. So what's a man to do? It starts with understanding that no one can fulfill another's unconscious ideal without losing themselves. Recognizing this can be freeing. For instance, journaling about your real feelings, doubts, and fears, the parts you usually hide, is a practical step. It's a rebellion against the animus myth. Or consider therapy, where you can unpack these expectations, not to fix yourself, but to embrace your authentic complexity. The catch? This isn't a quick fix. The animus runs deep, entwined with cultural myths, family stories, and personal wounds. How long will a man keep performing for a role that leaves him empty? And more importantly, how long before he stops seeking love from a shadow and starts demanding reality from himself and from those who claim to love him? The next step will reveal what happens when he breaks the script and shatters the illusions he's been trapped in. Are you ready to see what's really controlling the narrative? Projection, rejection, and psychological betrayal. Men often don't realize they're starring in a play written not by themselves, but by the unconscious scripts women carry. Jung pointed out something unsettling. When a man steps out of this imagined role, even slightly, he's rejected, not for what he is, but because he shattered a fragile illusion. It's like being fired for not playing a part you never auditioned for. Picture a guy who's been praised for being the perfect boyfriend, only to face cold distance when he expresses his real feelings. The betrayal feels deep because it's invisible. It's a punishment for authenticity. This rejection isn't just disappointment, it's psychological betrayal. When a man tries to break free, he faces a kind of exile from the emotional world he once belonged to. Imagine a software engineer in Silicon Valley who finally speaks his truth about wanting simplicity over ambition, only to be labeled as boring or not enough. It stings because it's not about failure, it's about failing to fit a mold. Jung warned that these patterns trap men in roles that deny their real selves, making them prisoners of expectations no one openly discusses. Women, influenced by their unconscious animus, project ideals that no man can truly fulfill. When reality clashes with this fantasy, the man becomes a target of unconscious anger and disappointment. This dynamic plays out like a chess game where one player changes the rules without warning. For instance, a man might be the emotional rock for years, only to be discarded the moment he needs vulnerability himself. The emotional dependency turns toxic, fueling resentment and confusion. Who's really in control here? This betrayal isn't personal in the usual sense. It's symbolic, layered deep in the psyche. Jung called it a psychological wound because the man is punished for breaking a spell. He's blamed for failing an invisible test. Take the example of a corporate man in New York, expected to be stoic and ambitious, who shows vulnerability at home. The backlash isn't just from his partner, but from the inner expectations she carries. It's a harsh reality. Authenticity can cost you love when it threatens unconscious fantasies. This dynamic creates a trap. Men perform roles to keep love alive, but lose themselves in the process. It's like being handed a beautiful mask that feels more real than your own face. Ever known someone who changes who they are to keep peace in a relationship? That's the pattern Jung described. The loss of self in exchange for acceptance. How long can you keep wearing that mask before it cracks? When does the act stop feeling like love and start feeling like prison? What's more, this rejection triggers a deep existential crisis for many men. They start questioning their worth, confusing the loss of approval for personal failure. Imagine a man in Mumbai, pressured by family expectations and social norms, who realizes he's only loved as an ideal, not for himself. The pain is silent, but crushing. Jung's insight here is profound. The wound cuts to the core of identity, shaking the foundation of self-worth. So, how do men break this cycle? Recognizing the illusion is step one, seeing that the rejection isn't about their true value but about shattered projections. Practices like journaling to explore feelings outside relationship roles or therapy to untangle these unconscious patterns can help. Picture a man reclaiming his emotional autonomy, refusing to be a character in someone else's script. But can you do that without losing what you thought was love? The question lingers. When is the price of being true to yourself worth the pain of rejection? This painful rupture leads us to a deeper truth. Why emotional dependency and fear of solitude push men back into these roles. The next topic reveals why breaking free feels like stepping into an abyss, and how solitude might be the key to genuine transformation. Are you ready to face what's really holding you back? Emotional dependency and the fear of being alone. Have you ever noticed how many men would rather wear a mask and live a lie than face the cold silence of being alone? Jung saw this fear of solitude as one of the deepest psychological prisons for men. Emotional dependency on a woman's approval becomes a survival tactic, a desperate attempt to avoid the terrifying emptiness inside. But what price do you pay when your sense of worth depends on someone else's gaze? How much of yourself do you lose in this constant quest for validation? The fear of loneliness isn't just about physical solitude. It's a spiritual void that screams to be filled. Many men become trapped in patterns of codependency, losing their boundaries and drowning in anxiety whenever that approval wavers. Have you ever asked yourself why being alone feels unbearable? Could it be that you've never truly learned to stand on your own psychological feet? Jung's challenge is brutal. Real freedom only begins when you stop chasing external approval and find your own inner fortress. Look around. How many relationships are held together not by love, but by fear? Fear of abandonment, fear of emptiness, fear of facing the self. This emotional dependency creates fragile connections built on illusion, where men perform roles to stay enough. But what happens when the performance cracks, the facade shatters, and chaos erupts? Are you living authentically, or are you simply afraid to be alone with your truth? Jung believed that true individuation, becoming a whole person, requires facing solitude head-on. It is in the silence of being alone that men encounter the raw, unfiltered self. Yet most run from this terrifying encounter, seeking refuge in relationships that numb rather than nurture. Could your deepest wounds be hidden behind the fear of solitude? And if so, what might healing look like when you finally dare to face yourself without distractions? Consider this. Emotional independence is not the absence of love, but the mastery of self-love. When a man learns to sustain himself psychologically, he no longer clings desperately to approval, but stands solidly in his own power. How different would your relationships be if you approached them from a place of strength rather than need? Jung's insight offers a harsh but necessary mirror. Are you dependent or are you free? Ultimately, the journey out of emotional dependency demands a radical shift. It's a death and rebirth, a shedding of old fears and illusions. The question remains, are you ready to break the chains of approval seeking? Or will you continue to hide behind the noise of others, avoiding the sacred, terrifying solitude where true transformation begins? Love as spiritual possession. Have you ever stopped to wonder if what you call love is actually a form of spiritual possession? Jung warned that many modern relationships aren't about two whole people coming together, but about invisible chains binding souls in unconscious roles. When a man fails to confront his own anima, his inner feminine essence, he enters love as a fragmented being, wearing a mask crafted to please and survive. But whose life is he really living then? The woman's projections, society's expectations, or a desperate attempt to avoid loneliness? Think about it. How often do men lose themselves trying to fit into an ideal, not their own, but one cast upon them? This isn't love, it's a cage. And paradoxically, the more a man tries to satisfy these external demands, the deeper his enslavement becomes. The spiritual possession Jung described is subtle, but deadly. It erodes identity by feeding on the need to be accepted at any cost. Does your relationship empower you, or does it quietly drain the essence of who you are? Jung's insight forces a brutal question. Are you truly in love with a woman, or addicted to the image she has created of you? The danger lies in confusing acceptance for authenticity. When the man is only a shadow of what she imagined, what happens when reality surfaces? He will be rejected or punished, not for who he is, but for shattering the illusion. Are you brave enough to face this shattering, or will you cling to the mask, even as it suffocates you? This dynamic isn't one-sided. Women also suffer under the weight of these spiritual possessions, haunted by animus archetypes that distort their desires and expectations. The dance of possession traps both, feeding on fear of abandonment and mistrust. What if the real challenge isn't finding the right partner, but breaking free from these unconscious chains within yourself? Can you imagine a love where both people meet as whole beings, not actors on a stage? Jung's view of love as possession shakes the foundation of romantic myths. It strips away comforting illusions to reveal the raw power struggles beneath. If love is possession, then freedom demands courage. The courage to stop pleasing, to stop performing, to stop losing yourself for approval. Are you ready to confront this uncomfortable truth, or will you continue to be a prisoner of an unseen spiritual master? In the end, love's greatest gift is freedom, not possession. But freedom is earned in solitude, in the fierce work of self-knowledge, and in facing the shadow of our anima and animus. Jung's message cuts deep. The man who never claims his wholeness will always be a prisoner, even in the arms of a lover. So what kind of love will you choose? One that possesses, or one that liberates? Solitude as transformation. What if the most profound change in your life comes not from others, but from the deep solitude you fear the most? Jung described this solitude as a kind of death before death, a collapse of the false identities and comforting illusions that have built your sense of self. It's in this terrifying silence that the man is stripped bare of all his roles, masks, and defenses. Are you ready to face who you truly are when the distractions fade away? This solitude is not about loneliness in the superficial sense, but an essential inner aloneness that forces confrontation with your unconscious. In the absence of external validation, you can no longer hide behind performances or the expectations of others. How long have you relied on the approval of women or society to feel worthy? And what happens when that crutch is removed? Suddenly or gradually. Jung believed that this painful process was necessary for individuation, the journey toward becoming a whole, integrated self. But why do most men resist this path? Fear? Certainly, but also a deep attachment to identity illusions that offer safety. What illusions are you clinging to, even if they stunt your growth and trap you in emotional dependency? In this crucible of solitude, the man meets his anima, his inner feminine, often rejected or misunderstood. Instead of externalizing his fears and desires onto others, he begins to own and integrate these parts within. Could embracing your anima unlock the emotional depth and authenticity you've been avoiding? What shadows might you uncover in the process? Emotional untouchability does not mean coldness or detachment. Rather, it is the freedom to exist without being controlled by others' projections or fantasies. Imagine the power of relationships where you are not trapped in roles or scripts, but fully seen and accepted. Would you dare to build connections from this space of truth? Most men fear this solitude so much that they escape into distractions, addictions, or relationships that only reinforce dependency. Yet Jung challenges this flight. Without enduring the inner death, there can be no rebirth. How many cycles of frustration and betrayal are you willing to endure before choosing freedom? This transformation is not comfortable or easy. It can feel like losing everything familiar, your identity, your safety nets, even your sense of purpose. But it is precisely this loss that allows for genuine growth. Can you handle the disintegration of your old self to make space for something new and unbreakable? Finally, Jung leaves us with a powerful question. Will you choose to die to your illusions and be reborn as a man who defines himself, or remain trapped in the endless play of being seen through another's fantasy? True freedom begins when solitude is embraced not as punishment, but as the gateway to your authentic self. From illusion to authentic love. The path from illusion to authentic love is one few men dare to walk. How many relationships have you been in where you felt like a character in someone else's script? Jung reminds us that true love doesn't require a performance. It demands raw honesty. But what happens when you reveal your true self and risk losing everything? Are you ready to face that vulnerability head on? For years, many men chase an idealized version of love, shaped by external expectations and projections. Women, too, carry unconscious archetypes that color their desires. Yet authentic connection only happens when both parties shed these fantasies. Can you recognize the masks you and your partner might be wearing? What lies beneath the surface of your current relationship? To attract a woman who knows and embraces herself requires a man who has done the same. This is no easy task. Self-awareness often means confronting uncomfortable truths about your own flaws and fears. Are you willing to dive deep into your psyche, facing parts of yourself you'd rather ignore, or will you keep settling for superficial attachments that never satisfy? Authentic love isn't about fixing or saving someone else. It's about meeting each other as whole individuals. Jung's psychology challenges us to stop blaming others for our emotional wounds. How much of your frustration comes from resisting personal growth? What if the key to better relationships lies in becoming emotionally autonomous? When a man stops seeking validation externally, he steps into a new realm of freedom. This independence doesn't mean isolation. It means connection on a more profound, honest level. Imagine a love where neither partner demands change or performance, but instead embraces imperfection. How radical would your love life be if you embrace this? This transformation requires courage and relentless honesty with oneself. Jung's notion of individuation, the process of becoming whole, can feel like dying before you die, shedding illusions that no longer serve you. What illusions about love, identity, and worth are you holding on to? Are you prepared to let them go? Authentic love is both a reward and a challenge. It asks men to become authors of their own emotional destiny, rather than victims of circumstance. Have you taken control of your narrative? Or are you still casting blame on others for your disappointments? The moment you do, you shift from reactive to creative. Ultimately, Jung's disturbing truth forces men to confront their role and why women choose them, not based on illusion, but on authentic presence. This is no comfortable conclusion, but a powerful one. Only by becoming your true self can you invite someone to truly see and love you. Are you ready to stop performing and start living that truth? So, after peeling back the layers of illusions, projections, and fears, what's left? A raw, uncomfortable truth. Most men aren't truly free in their relationships because they've been living someone else's script. They seek love as approval, not authenticity. They get trapped in emotional dependency and lose themselves trying to fit ideals that aren't theirs. But freedom, Jung tells us, starts the moment you stop blaming others and start owning your story. Ask yourself, will you stay caged in this cycle of illusion and disappointment? Or will you break free by embracing your solitude, your imperfections, and the power that comes from within? Real transformation isn't about finding the perfect woman. It's about becoming the man who no longer needs to be saved or validated by anyone else. That's where authentic love begins. This isn't a comfortable journey, and it certainly isn't popular advice, but the reward is immense. Emotional sovereignty, respect, and relationships that don't drain you but elevate you. If you're ready to take that first step, make a commitment today. Subscribe to this channel. Activate notifications so you never miss a truth that challenges your mind and soul, and comment below with "I'm breaking free" to declare your intention. Remember, the truth may be disturbing, but it's also liberating. And if you think this video opened your eyes, wait until you see what's coming next. We're just getting started on this journey of self-mastery and real connection. Are you ready to become untouchable?